Hey everyone, with earnings season in full swing, I thought I would explain and make sense of the upcoming earnings reports. In this video, I'll show you the highlights of this week's earning releases and give you my take on some of the biggest companies reporting earnings this week. But before we talk about that, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. For the low price of $0, you can help this video get pushed out to other people looking to start investing by turning the like button blue. So thank you for doing that. And with that said, let's get into the video. So if we take a look at the earnings whisper calendar here, on Monday we have a ton of companies reporting earnings. So before the open, one that I'm looking into is on Semiconductor, ticker ON. So if we go to their website, we see that they create semiconductors for EVs, EV charging stations, etc. So they're looking at automotive solutions, IoT solutions, and industrial and cloud power solutions. If we go to their earnings, we see here that earnings beat for the past few quarters. And from their financials, they have annual declining revenue and earnings for annual, yes. So I'm looking at this company as a way to see the current status of the chip shortage. Next up is Ferrari. So if we go to their website, we see that, of course, they're a luxury car maker, now getting into the EV space. So if we go to their earnings, we see that the earnings missed for Q2 of 2020, but they beat for the past few quarters. From their financials, they have annual increasing revenue and earnings, but in 2020, they decreased most likely due to the illness and affecting people's disposable income. So I'm looking at this company to see if they mention anything about the road plan for their line of EVs. After the close, we see Take-Two reporting. And on their website, they're a video game holding company that owns two major publishing labels, Rockstar Games and 2K, which operate internal game development studios. So for those that don't know, Rockstar created Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. 2K created NBA 2K and Borderlands. If we go to their financials, we see that earnings beat for the past few quarters, but they have been trending down overall. For the financials, they have annual consistently increasing revenue and earnings. So I'm looking at this company as a way to gauge the gaming industry as a whole and see if they provide any guidance in the future. I'm also looking at as a gauge on lockdown stocks since with people staying at home for a prolonged period of time, they had more time to play video games. So I'm curious to see how overall time playing video games and by extension Take-Two's revenues will be affected with people going out again. The next one I'm looking at is Solaredge Technologies, ticker SEDG. So if we go to their website, we see that they're an Israel-headquartered provider of power optimizer, solar inverter, and monitoring systems for photovoltaic arrays or PV arrays. These products aim to increase energy output through module-level maximum power point tracking. So essentially, they're in the energy industry. So if we go to their financials here, we see that earnings beat for the past few quarters, but they missed this latest quarter. From their financials, they have annual consistently increasing revenue and earnings. So I'm looking at this company as a gauge for the energy industry as a whole, particularly with competitors like Enphase and Tesla. The next company that I'm looking at is Simon Property Group, ticker SPG. They're a real estate investment trust or REIT that invests in shopping malls, outlet centers, and community lifestyle centers. It is the largest owner of shopping malls in the United States. If we go to their financials here, we see that earnings missed for the past few quarters, but they beat this latest quarter. From the financials, they have annual increasing revenue and earnings pre-pandemic, but were lowered last year due to the pandemic and with their malls being shut down. I'm looking at this company as a gauge for the reopening and recovery play as a whole. So if we jump back to the calendar here, we can see some of the other ones here, Arista Network, NXP, etc. So if we go to Tuesday here, we see that quite a few more high-profile companies are reporting. So before open, First one here is Alibaba Group, ticker BABA. So, for those that don't know, they're a Chinese multinational technology company specializing in e commerce, retail, internet, and technology. So, you can think of it as the Amazon of China. If we go to their earnings reports, we see that earnings beat for the past few quarters, but they missed this latest quarter. From the financials, they have consistent annual increasing revenue and earnings. So I'm looking at this company as a gauge for public Chinese companies ever since the fallout of Didi and other Chinese company stocks going down due to the recent crackdown on these companies by the Chinese government. So the next one I'm looking at is Corsair Gaming, ticker CRSR. They're an American computer peripherals and hardware company. They own Elgato for streaming and Scuff Gaming for custom controllers. So if we go to their earnings report, they we see that earnings beat for the past few quarters, and from their financials, they have consistent annual increasing revenue and earnings. So I'm looking at this company as I'm interested to see their future growth compared to their competitors like Logitech. Now, another one that I'm pretty curious about looking at is Under Armour, as I want to see how it performs as a competitor to Nike and Lululemon. So after the close, you see the first one here, and one that I'm looking at is Skills, ticker SKLZ. So for those that don't know, they're an online mobile multiplayer video game competition platform that is integrated into a number of iOS and Android games. Players use it to compete in competitions against other players across the world. So if we go to their financials here, we see that their earnings missed for the past few quarters, and from their financials, they have consistent annual increasing revenue but decreasing earnings. So I'm looking at this company as a play on SPACs and the SPAC market, and how recently de-SPAC stocks are perceived, and how mobile games fare as the world slowly reopens. Now, speaking of video games, another one that I'm looking at, in addition to Take Two and Skills, is Activision Blizzard, ticker ATVI. So they're an American video game holding company through the merger of Activision and Vivendi Games. So they have Activision, which creates Call of Duty, Blizzard, which creates World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and Diablo, and King Digital, which creates Candy Crush. If we go to their financials, we see that earnings beat for the past few quarters. And from the financials, they have consistent annual increasing revenue but decreasing earnings. So, like Take-Two, I'm looking at this company as a way to gauge the gaming industry as a whole and see if they provide any future guidance. So, going to the next company here is Lyft, ticker LYFT. Uh, so, they're a ride sharing company for those that don't know. And as for their financials, their earnings beat for the past few quarters. From the financials, they have consistent annual increasing revenue, but decreasing earnings pre-pandemic. Due to the pandemic, revenue decreased. So I'm looking at this company as a way to gauge how much people are traveling and commuting to work and in general relative to before the pandemic. And just to go back to the calendar here, we see some other ones here: BP, ConocoPhillips, Lilly, Clorox, Nikola, Rip Nikola, uh, Discovery, Alteryx, SunPower, etc. Now, before we get continuing over, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified when my videos get uploaded. It's completely free to do so, and you can always change your mind later. So thank you for doing that. With that said, let's get back into the video. So moving on into Wednesday here. So before the open, we have quite a number of companies here. First of which is GM, or General Motors, with the ticker GM. Um, So yeah, the company manufactures a variety of digital media players. Oh, sorry. The company designs, manufactures, markets, and distributes vehicle parts and sells financial services. So as we can see on their uh, homepage here, uh, we see the phrase "everybody in." So they're really pushing their EV narrative and their transition into an EV car company to compete with the likes of Tesla, Lucid, Rivian, Neo, etc. So with that, particularly with their Ultium platform here, so they're getting into that EV platform area. So I'm looking to hear how much the chip shortage has affected their sales and any insights into the future of their EV platform and potential EV charging play as well. If we go to their financials here, we see that. Oh, okay. So next is CVS Health, ticker CVS. They're an American healthcare company, and I'm looking to see how vaccines has affected its business. Um, I'm sure with the recent uptick in number of vaccines given, their foot traffic has increased because of that. If we go to their financials, we see that earnings have been consistently beat, but lowered due to the pandemic, obviously, throughout 2020. But now they're on this uptrend into 2021, and with the current estimate still trending upward, it's a good sign there. If we go to their financials, um, their revenues and their earnings are both increasing. It's a good sign. So yeah, we'll be curious to see how CVS ends up performing when they report. Next one here is EXP Realty, ticker EXPI. They're one of the world's fastest growing real estate brokerages. So I'm looking to hear how the housing shortage has affected their business and how long term their growth actually is. So if we go to their financials here, we see that Q2, Q3 of 2020 was trending up a lot, but actually missed and decreased the past 2 quarters, most likely due to the recent housing shortage and inflation on things like lumber and um, building materials, etc. So if we go to their financials, we see here that their revenue has pretty much exploded here, um, hitting almost 2 billion last year, and they're finally uh, have positive earnings here, which is a good sign. So the next one here is Roku, which they report after the close, ticker ROKU. The company manufactures a variety of digital media players for video streaming, and they have an advertising business that also licenses hardware and software to other companies. So I'm looking to hear how the lockdowns have affected their business and how long term their growth actually is as more people start um, going out and living their own lives. Now, if we go to their financials here, we see that there's an obvious high uptick here in their earnings in Q2 to Q3 to Q4. Now it seems to have leveled off here, and even the estimates have started declining here. But the actual earnings beat is starting to have that lower growth in it, which could be a sign that's an inflection point. And obviously, with 2020 being a bit of an anomaly of a year, their revenues have just exploded compared to 2019. Now, the next company I want to look at is Uber. So similar to Lyft, they're a ride-hailing company, but in addition to that, they have food delivery, package delivery, couriers, freight transportation, and they actually partner with Lime for electric bicycle and motorized scooter rental. Now, I'm looking at this company as a way to gauge how much people are traveling, commuting to work, and in general relative to before the pandemic, similar to Lyft. Now, the next company I want to look at is Etsy, ticker ETSY. So they're an American e-commerce company focused on handmade or vintage items and craft supplies. And I'm looking to see how long-term the growth is due to the lockdowns. You can think of this as um, a small business version of Amazon, that you can support independent creators, and it's for those small mom and pop sort of unique crafts and creations that you wouldn't necessarily find on Amazon, which makes it unique and able to withstand the behemoth that is Amazon. So if we go to the earnings reports, we see that they've been consistently beating um, expectations here for earnings. Obviously, Q4 seems like a really big beat, and relative to the previous quarters, the earnings beat seems to have come down here. Q1 of 2021 might just be due to Q4 being um, holiday season, so more likely to get gifts from Etsy. And if we go to their financials, obviously with most brick and mortar stores shutting down and more people turning to Etsy and other online retailers to get these unique crafts. And so their revenues and earnings reflect that immense growth that they've experienced the past year. So I'll be curious to see if uh, this long this kind of growth pattern continues long term for them. And finally, the last one I'm looking at on Wednesday is Wynn Resorts, ticker WYNN. Now, they're a developer and operator of high end hotels and casinos, most notable in Las Vegas. So I'm looking to see how this quarter is for them due to the recent reopening for the summer. If we go to their financials, here we see that they've consistently missed their earnings for the past few quarters. But if we see here, the actual earnings is still trending upward relative to earlier in 2020, signaling that it's a less of a loss. In other words, it's still trending upward, so business is slowly getting back to normal. And obviously, with 2020 being an anomaly of a year, pre-pandemic it was uh, growing okay. 2019 seemed to a bit of a slump, but then 2020 really took a hit. So I'd be curious to see how 2021 shakes out for them. Now, if we go back to the earnings calendar here, we see that we have other ones here: Bionanogenomics, Western Digital for um, data storage, Corvo, things like that. Now, if we move on to Thursday, uh, first company I'm looking at is Moderna, ticker mRNA. And if we go to their website here, for those who don't know, it's a pharmaceutical and biotech company that focuses on vaccine technologies based on messenger RNA. So they're one of the companies that created one of the vaccines. So I'm looking to hear how their future growth potential is beyond their vaccine, especially with their mRNA technology. It seems like very promising biotechnology, not just for illness, but for future diseases as well. So very promising stuff there. Now, if we go to their earnings, we see that they actually beat Q1 of 2021 and a huge jump relative to the past few quarters in 2020. And for their financials, revenues are increasing, but we see here the earnings are actually decreasing a lot, most likely due to R&D costs and things of that nature, just due to the nature of being a biotech company. So be curious to see how if they're able to become profitable at some point in the future, in the near future rather. Um, and yeah, next one here is Square. They're an American financial services company and digital payments based in SF. And so I'm looking to hear about their long-term growth prospects with respect to their Square payment processors for small businesses. We know that small businesses have been especially hurt during the pandemic. So, but with some businesses slowly opening back up, um, the use of their payment processors should also go up, as well as Cash App. They've been increasing a lot of users and um, have a very wide array of offering for peer-to-peer payments and investing crypto. And obviously with Square itself, they have their own Bitcoin holdings. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is that they recently announced plans to acquire Afterpay, which is that buy now, pay later platform. So it strengthens further integration between the seller and Cash App ecosystems. So very interesting to see how the acquisition of Afterpay, um, what that does to Square and how what they're thinking about the future of their business. Um, Especially now that Apple Pay is also going for that buy now pay later model as well. And speaking of Bitcoin, we see here that Cash App's quarterly Bitcoin revenue triples despite Bitcoin impairment loss for Square. Jack Dorsey's Square has made more than 90% more gross profit than the same period last year, $546 million coming from Cash App's Bitcoin services. So seems like Bitcoin and crypto is a big push in for Cash App and for that Square by extension. So be curious. And with Jack Dorsey's big proponents of Bitcoin and crypto in general, and how they're looking to get potentially Bitcoin wallets or NFTs. Um, Definitely seems like a great way to get some exposure to the crypto market without necessarily buying crypto itself. And finally, the last one I'm looking into is DraftKings, which is reports earnings Friday before the open. Their ticker is DKNG, and they're an American daily fantasy sports contest and sports betting operator. So I'm looking to see how their long-term growth prospects and how they see potential legislation getting passed or not. Now, if we go to their financials, we see that earnings have continuously missed the past quarters. We do see an uptrend here of the consensus EPS. However, their actual EPS is still low, a lot lower than before. So still that general downtrend. If we go to their financials here, we see revenue is increasing, but we see this huge $1.23 billion loss in earnings. So definitely not a great year for DraftKings. So we'll see if they're able to recoup some of their losses now that sports are hopefully opening back up. Um, Obviously, with sports being canceled last year, it definitely hurt their earnings. But hopefully, with the reopening, they'll be able to recoup that loss. Now, in terms of the legislation itself, I found this on AmericanGaming.org from the American Gaming Association. They have an interactive map of the legalization of sports betting in the U.S. Now, if we see here that currently there are 22 states and DC that have live legal sports betting. Now, uh, we see here in the light pink here that 10 states are legal, just not yet operational. So there's still some growth potential here in these next 10 states once they go fully operational. And we have another 2 states here that are active or pre-filed legislation, with another 16 states with inactive sports betting. So be curious to see how legislation for sports betting plays out over the next few years and how that'll affect DraftKings as well. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you're interested in getting started with investing, be sure to use my Weibo link down below and you'll get 2 free stocks when you deposit $100. Choose my Weibo link down below, sign up and deposit $100 and you'll get 2 free stocks. And if you're interested in investing in crypto and earning some interest on your crypto, be sure to sign up using my BlockFi link down below. and you'll get up to $250 in free Bitcoin when you use my link. And that depends on how much money you deposit into your account. So yeah, with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified when my videos get uploaded. Also, be sure to comment down below anything else you want to see and learn, and what you found useful, and what other earnings reports you're looking into this week. And follow me on my socials to get even more investing and personal finance content. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care.